named Roger Rabbit. Please read along with me in your book. You'll know it's time to turn a page when you hear the chimes ring like this. Let's begin now. Most people think it's simple being a cartoon character. They say it's a breeze, a snap, a piece of cake. That's a laugh. And I should know I'm Roger Rabbit, king of the comics, guru of grins, sultan of smiles. You see, cartoon characters, toons they call us, are really just actors. We live in a place called Toontown, and we gotta work like anybody else. Take me, for instance. I spend most of my time on movie sets at the Maroon Cartoon Studios. My boss is R.K. Maroon. While I was on the set one day, he was upstairs talking to a detective, a gumshoe, a private eye named Eddie Valiant.
Okay, Valiant, here's the deal. Roger Rabbit's wife Jessica has been getting friendly with another guy. I want you to look into it. Get some pictures to wise the rabbit up.
Forget it, Maroon. I don't work in Toontown.
You don't have to. She sings at a place called the Ink and Paint Club. 2 reviews, strictly humans only.
Eddie looked into it all right. He went to the club that night and caught Jessica's act. When the curtain opened, he was surprised, astonished, stupefied. Jessica wasn't a rabbit at all. What she was beautiful.
She's married to Roger Rabbit?
After the show, he sneaked into an alley behind the club and got out his camera. He took pictures of Jessica, the light of my life, the apple of my eye, the cream in my coffee, playing patty cake with another man. Eddie was surprised to see who it was.
Well, what do you know? It's Marvin Acme.
Marvin Acme made trick movie props like hand buzzers and whoopee cushions. Oh, and one more thing. He was the owner of Toontown. When Eddie showed me the pictures in R.K. Maroon's office, I could hardly bear to look. I don't believe it. I won't believe it. I shan't believe it.
Believe it. I took the pictures myself, you screwy toon. Here, have a soda and calm down.
I was so upset that I forgot what always happens when I drink a soda. Before I knew it, my head had turned into a giant steam whistle. I let out a blast and rocketed through the window. Eddie thought the job was over, finished, kaput. But the next morning, the police showed up and took him to see Judge Doom. What the judge told him was absolutely astounding.
Last night, someone dropped a safe on Marvin Acme. It had to be the rabbit. When I catch him, here's what I'll do.
His weasel helpers backed up a truck with a vat of turpentine. The judge held a toon shoe over it and dipped it in. The shoe melted into a puddle of paint. My knees get wobbly just thinking about it. Eddie got a tip that Acme's will was missing. Not only that, the will left Toontown to us toons. Eddie figured if he could find Acme's will, it might point to the real culprit and get yours truly off the hook. Smart guy, that Eddie. When he got back to his office, he took a look, a glimpse, a gander at the patty cake picture, and he noticed something.
Hey, there's the will. It's right in Acme's back pocket.
That's when I popped up. You've got to help me, Eddie.
What are you doing here? The police are looking for you.
I didn't do it, I swear. Last night I went to see Jessie in the dressing room, but she was gone. I even found some blank paper and wrote her a love letter. I'm innocent, Eddie. Please, help me.
Yeah. I'll see what I can do.
I gave him a big smack on the lip. How can I repay you?
For starters, don't ever kiss me again.
That night, Eddie sneaked into Jessica's dressing room to look for the will. He heard a noise, then everything went black. The next thing he knew, he was sitting in a chair, looking up at Judge Doom, Jessica, and the Weasel.
Searching for something, Mr. Valiant?
Yeah, Acme's will. Seen it?
He had no will. Take him downtown, boys. Downtown, Toontown.
Eddie's face went pale.
Oh no, not Toontown.
The Weasels got some paint cans and brushes and took Eddie into the Toontown tunnel.
You know, Valiant, in Toontown, we got a way of handling people who are big-headed.
A few minutes later, Eddie came shooting out of the tunnel. His head was painted in the shape of a toon pig. After Eddie scrubbed off the toon head, he found me in a restaurant, entertaining the folks. He grabbed me by the ears and yanked me into a back room.
I'm risking my neck, and you're singing and dancing?
Well, Eddie, my philosophy is, if you don't have a sense of humor, you're better off dead. Just then, we heard a commotion out front. It was Judge Doom.
I know the rabbit's here. This should bring him out. No tune can resist it.
He knocked on the wall.
Shave and a haircut.
Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. Okay. 2 bits. The judge held my trial right there.
Roger Rabbit, you are guilty as charged. I sentence you to the dip.
Oh no, the dip. My goose is cooked. My ash is slung. My fate is accompli. That's when Eddie spoke up.
Doesn't the prisoner get a last request? I think he wants a soda.
I do?
Yes, you do.
He handed me the soda, and I took a sip. Just like before, my head turned into a giant whistle and let out a blare. While everybody had their ears, Eddie and I ran outside. I spotted a pal of mine, Eddie the cab. We hopped in, but Eddie couldn't figure out the controls.
What do I do?
Then he raced his engine.
Nothing, except hang on to your hat.
A few minutes later, we were home free, out of the woods, in like Flynn. Then he dropped us off in front of a movie theater.
If you ever need a lift, just stick out your thumb.
We hid in the theater where a cartoon was playing. The crowd was cracking up, going wild, rolling in the aisles. Everybody but Eddie. Hey, Eddie, how come you never laughed?
You wanna know? My brother was bumped off in Toontown. A tune dropped the piano on him, then ran off. No one's seen him since.
You must hate me. No wonder you yanked my ears.
I don't hate you. And I'm sorry I yanked your ears, okay?
Now I understood why he was such a sourpuss all the time. Eddie was suspicious of R.K. Maroon, so we drove to the studio to visit him. Eddie went upstairs, and I watched the parking lot. I was supposed to honk the horn if I saw anything fishy, cockeyed, out of line. A minute later, I heard a noise, but before I could do anything, somebody clobbered me over the head with a frying pan. Then dumped me into the trunk of a car. Upstairs, Eddie had convinced R.K. Maroon to talk.
It's not what you think, Valiant. A company called Cloverleaf Oil wanted to buy my land, but only if they could get Toontown. I had you take those pictures of Acme so he'd sell his land. Okay, it was a lousy thing to do, but I didn't drop a safe on his head.
What's Cloverleaf going to do with Toontown? Drill for oil?
Worse than that. They're planning to...
There was a shot, and Maroon fell to the floor. Eddie looked out the window and saw Jessica hot-footing into a car. He followed her to Toontown, where he found the car parked next to Acme's gag factory. The trunk popped open, and yours truly peeked out. What happened, Eddie? 1 minute, I'm about to whistle. The next thing I know, it's goodnight, nurse.
That was no nurse. It was your wife.
He handcuffed me to his steering wheel.
I'm going after her. You're staying right here.
When he left, I started the car. Maybe I'll go for a spin. Eddie walked into an alley and saw a dark shape. Suddenly, Jessica's voice rang out.
Look out, Eddie!
He dove to the ground, and the bullet whizzed past his head. The dark figure ran off, holding a gun. It was Judge Doom. Jessica came up beside Eddie.
I've been following him all night. He's the one who got R.K. marooned.
Lady, I guess I had you pegged wrong.
She told Eddie the whole story.
You see, Valiant, Judge Doom was behind it all. He wanted Toontown. He wanted the will, too, but Acme left that with me. Funny thing about that will, it turned out to be just a blank piece of paper.
Good old Marvin, a joker to the end.
But the joke was on them. A gang of weasels blocked the alleyway. Then hauled them off to Acme's gag factory. What they didn't know was that I was right behind them. I managed to slip out of the cuffs and sneak inside where Doom was giving Valiant the scoop, the poop, the lowdown.
If the will doesn't turn up in 15 minutes, Toontown is legally mine. You see, I am Cloverleaf Oil.
He brought out a huge dip cannon.
Once I own Toontown, I'm using this to dip it off the face of the earth.
Dip Toontown? It was too terrible to believe. I decided it was time to bite the bullet, hit the beach, okay the corral. I dove into the plumbing and shot out of a drain, sending the weasels flying. I turned to Judge Doom. You think you can get away with this? We Toons may be idiotic, but we're not stupid. While I was yapping away, one of Doom's buddies pushed a stack of bricks off the rafters right above me. Jesse hurried over.
Roger, say something.
Look at the pretty stars. They tied Jesse and me to a big hook and turned on the dip cannon. Then the judge grabbed an oxygen tank and started sucking oxygen. Stretched and changed, blowing up like a balloon. Eddie staggered back.
Holy Toledo, you're a Toon.
Not just any tune, Eddie. Recognize me? I dropped a piano on your brother, and now it's your turn.
Doom turned his hand into a giant buzzsaw and started forward. As he did, Eddie grabbed the dip cannon and pointed it toward Judge Doom. A minute later, the judge was just a smear of pain. When Eddie untied us, Jessica gave me a hug. I figured it was time to read her the love letter. Dear Jessie, I'm Marvin Acme of Sound Mind and Body. Hey, it's the will! Acme wrote it with disappearing, reappearing ink. And now it's coming back. It was all there. Acme had left Toontown to us Toons. Afterwards, when we walked outside, the sun was just coming up over Toontown. I grinned. So, Eddie, you think you're gonna keep your sense of humor?
Does this answer your question?
Yeah. Eddie, can I ask just one favor?
Sure, kid. Go ahead.
Don't ever kiss me again!
This is the story of Oliver and Company. You can read along with me in your book. You will notice time to turn the page when you hear the chimes ring like this. Let's begin now. Oliver the kitten sat on a busy street corner in New York City, alone and hungry.
What's that wonderful smell? Hey, there's a man selling sausages.
As Oliver started forward, a dog stepped in his path. Oliver jumped back.
Get away from me!
Whoa, chill out, man. I don't eat cats. Too much fur. You know, I've been watching you, and I think you're in serious need of some professional guidance. What do you say we team up and get some of those hot dogs?
Oliver nodded eagerly. The dog moved in rhythm to a car horn.
You see, kid, the city's got a beat. Once you hook into it, you can do anything.
I can?
Absolutely, positively.
Suddenly, the dog let out a growl. Frightened, Oliver scrambled up the sausage man's chest. In the confusion, the dog grabbed a string of hot dogs and raced off. Oliver called after him.
Hey, when do we eat?
The dog laughed and kept going. Angry, Oliver followed him. In an old barge across town, a gang of dogs compared what they had found that day. Einstein, a Great Dane, proudly showed a broken tennis racket to a Chihuahua.
Tito, look what I got.
You call that loot, man? Here, check out this designer wallet.
A bulldog looked up from his TV set.
Ooh, shredded leather.
Rita, an Afghan hound, strutted up to the bulldog.
So, Francis, you got the food? It was your turn today.
Well, no.
Francis hung his head sheepishly. Just then the door opened and in sauntered the dog with the sausages.
Here you go, gang. Hot dogs a la Dodger.
Tito scampered around excitedly.
How'd you do it, Dodger?
Picture the city, 8th and Broadway. Enter Dodger, one cool puppy. Enter the opposition, a psychotic monster with sharp claws and dripping fangs. He comes at me, eyes burning. Suddenly,
There was a crash, and an object came hurtling through the ceiling. Tito raced around in circles.
Gang war, watch out!
The object climbed out of a laundry pile where it had landed. It was Oliver. He'd been watching the dogs through a hole in the ceiling.
I'm sorry. I just want my sausages.
Rita laughed.
So, Dodger, this is your monster?
Hey, Dodger man, let's see the big bad kitty fighter in action.
Tito took a running leap and landed on top of Dodger. Einstein grinned and jumped in.
Oh boy, a dog pile.
Suddenly, the door burst open, and Oliver dove for cover inside a box. In strode Fagin, the dog's master.
Sykes will be here any minute. Oh, why did I ever borrow money from that man? Now he's saying he'll kill me if I don't pay him back. Okay, gang, where's today's loot?
Fagin dug through the loot box and found Oliver.
A pussycat. I'm supposed to pay Sykes with a pussycat?
At that moment, Sykes pulled up in a black limousine with two snarling watchdogs.
you have 3 days to pay me back, Fagin. Or else somebody like you might get hurt.
One of the watchdogs noticed Oliver, and his eyes glinted. He lunged, but Oliver swiped its claw across the watchdog's nose. The dog backed away, then left. Dodger grinned proudly at Oliver.
What did I tell you guys? Old Dodge can really pick him, huh?
Fagin staggered back into the barge and collapsed in a chair.
3 days? I'll never get the money by then.
Rita licked Fagin's chin, and Francis hurried off to get some slippers. Einstein brought a book. Fagin began to feel better.
All right, Einstein, I'll read to you. But only one chapter. Once upon a time, there was a dog named Sparky.
Oliver sighed, snuggled up next to Dodger, and fell asleep. The next day, Fagin loaded the gang onto the back of his motor scooter and drove downtown.
Dodger, keep an eye on the cat. And remember, we need money, or else.
Dodger was ready for action.
Okay, gang, let's try a chauffeur shuffle. See that limousine coming up the street? Here's the plan. Einstein, give me a fender bender. Tito, you're in charge of electronics. Cat, you stick with Tito and try to help.
Inside the limousine, a little girl named Jenny was reading a letter from her parents. She turned to the chauffeur.
Oh, Winston, I don't think they'll make it home for my birthday.
As the limousine rounded a corner, Einstein leaped out and banged into its side. The car screeched to a stop, and Winston jumped out.
Oh, you poor dog. What have I done to you?
Meanwhile, Tito scrambled into the car and began chewing through the radio wires.
Come on, kitty. You be the lookout.
When Oliver jumped in, he accidentally bumped the key and started the car. Tito fled, but Jenny saw Oliver and picked him up.
Poor little kitty. I'm gonna take you home.
Winston got back into the limousine and they pulled away. Tito and Dodger followed until the car stopped in front of an elegant mansion.
Oh, man, Dodger, they got the kid. We gotta bust him out of there.
Don't worry, Tito. We will. Absolutely, positively.
Inside the house, Jenny cooked breakfast for Oliver.
I bet you're starved, huh? Here, you can use Georgette's bowl.
She poured the food into a gold dish. When Jenny left to answer the phone, a fluffy lavender poodle sashayed into the room, frowning in disgust.
Do you happen to know whose bowl you're eating out of?
Oliver gulped.
Someone named Georgette?
Yes, just like everything else in this house. It's mine!
A moment later, Jenny rushed back into the kitchen.
Guess what, kitten? My parents say I can keep you. Isn't it wonderful, Georgette? You two are going to be such good friends.
Jenny took Oliver to a fancy jewelry shop where she picked out a gold pendant.
I'm having it engraved, kitten, with your name, Oliver, and your new address, 1125 Fifth Avenue.
That afternoon, Oliver watched Jenny practice piano. He felt like he was really somebody's friend. It was almost too good to be true. The next day, while Jenny was at school, the gang crept into the mansion and went up to Jenny's room where they ran into Georgette.
So, you mutts are here to rescue your kitten? I'd be delighted to help you. This cat's cramping my style.
When Rita noticed how happy Oliver looked, asleep on Jenny's bed, she had second thoughts. But Georgette was already picking up Oliver. She stuffed him into a pillowcase.
Now get going, mutts. Hurry, use the fire escape.
The dogs took Oliver back to the barge. When they let him out of the bag, he looked up sadly at Dodger.
I was really happy there. Why'd you guys take me?
Hey, this place not good enough for you anymore, kid? Don't want to mix with the riff-raff?
No, I like everyone in the gang. But there's a little girl in... Dodger, I just want to go back.
Fine. No one's stopping you.
Just then, Fagin walked through the door and picked up the kitten.
I got 2 hours left, pussycat. How can I ever pay off Sykes?
Fagin noticed Oliver's gold tag.
Fifth Avenue. So that's where you've been. Your owner's probably worth millions.
Fagin grabbed a pen and paper.
Your tag gave me a brilliant idea, kitten. Let's see. Dear pet owner. Dear rich pet owner.
When Jenny received Fagin's ransom note and map, she didn't waste a minute.
Come on, Georgette, we have to rescue Oliver.
She took the reluctant poodle and hurried through the dimly lit streets. At last, she rounded a corner and saw Fagin.
Excuse me, sir. I'm lost. You see, I came to find my kitty.
Your kitty?
Where was Oliver's rich owner?
Yes. You see, somebody stole him, and I brought my piggy bank to get him back. That's all I have.
Fagin's plan had failed, and to make matters worse, the little girl was starting to cry. Fagin took Oliver out of his pocket.
Look, I found a little lost kitten. Maybe he's yours.
Oliver!
At that moment, a car started toward them. It was Sykes. Zooming past, he opened his door and pulled Jenny inside.
Don't be afraid, little girl. Your parents will pay plenty to get you back.
Oliver watched the car speed away.
He took Jenny.
But Dodger and the gang were already off and running.
Don't worry, Cat. She's your friend, so we'll get her back.
Oliver, Georgette, and the gang followed Sykes to his warehouse, where they crouched outside the door. They could see Jenny tied to a chair inside an office, with Sykes looking on. When he stepped away, Dodger nudged Francis.
You go in first and keep an eye on the monitors. Make sure the coast is clear.
A moment later, Dodger and the others slipped inside the office. Oliver jumped into Jenny's lap.
Oh, Oliver.
They untied her and hurried to the loading door. But when they opened it, Sykes was standing outside.
The party's over, dogs.
Suddenly, there was the sound of a sputtering motor.
Climb on board, everyone!
It was Fagin on his scooter. He gunned the engine and raced past the startled Sykes.
Watch your heads, gang! We're going for a little ride on the subway!
Georgette watched in horror as Fagin clattered down the station entrance and right onto the subway tracks. But as the scooter gathered speed, he turned around.
Sykes is right behind us! He's crashing into the scooter! Jenny, look out!
The collision had knocked Jenny onto the hood of Sykes' car. Oliver and Dodger leaped onto the limousine to help out. There was a blast of cold air as the scooter and car emerged onto the Brooklyn Bridge. Jenny held onto the hood ornament on Sykes' car.
There's a train coming. Right at us. Mr. Fagin, help!
Fagin leaned backward and with a tremendous yank pulled Jenny back onto the scooter. At the same instant, with the train inches away, he swerved and drove up onto the bridge railing. Jenny screamed and covered her face. The train hit Sykes' limousine, and the car sank into the river with Oliver and Dodger on it. The gang peered down from the bridge, but they saw only rushing water. Several long moments passed. Then there was a noise behind them, and Dodger stepped out from the shadows. In his mouth, he held a limp, lifeless kitten. Jenny raced over.
Oliver, please be all right.
The little kitten slowly opened his eyes and looked up at her. Jenny pulled him close.
Oh, Oliver.
The next day, the whole gang was invited to Jenny's house for a birthday party. After she thanked them for her gifts, Oliver followed Dodger outside.
Thanks for everything, Dodger.
Take care of yourself, kid. And if you ever need anything, you'll know where to find me.
Oliver smiled at his friend.